Today on the Chad Schlegel Show, coaching you to and through retirement. We're going to discuss how the stock market goes through cycles and what to do if you think you are taking too much risk. And on our Coach's Corner today, we're going to discuss the major causes of a down market that many of you are facing right now. And on our Chalk Talk segment, we are going to discuss some general guidelines that will help you be more successful in a down market. So sit back, relax, and learn. The Chad Schlegel Show starts now.
I'm Chad Schlegel. I believe financial planning is about educating people and empowering them to make better decisions with their hard-earned dollars. Coaching gives me satisfaction from watching a player succeed and get better. You need an experienced team around you. The best coaches have great assistant coaches. I have brought a lot of the techniques and structure I learned from playing and coaching football and applied them to the world of investing. My goal now is to coach as many individuals and families as I can on how to get successfully to and through retirement.
Welcome into the Chad Schlegel Show, coaching you to and through retirement. I'm the coach, Chad Schlegel, here with my colleague, Chad Tobin. And today on the Clipboard segment, we're going to discuss how the stock market goes through cycles and what to do if you think you're taking too much risk with your portfolio. A couple of months ago, my oldest son, who is 19, got a speeding ticket going a lot faster than he should have been. So we sat down, had a come to Jesus moment, if you will, and he explained that he knew he was going too fast, he knew that he was speeding, and he deserved to get the ticket. However, if he didn't receive that ticket, he would still be speeding. A lot like those of you who recently lost some hard-earned dollars to the recent downturn in the market. You realize now you're taking too much risk, and you realize you should slow down with the money that you have in the market. You realize now it's time to slow down and be more conservative with your money and stop the losses. The problem is, even though you know you need to make some changes, you're not sure what to do, where to start, or how to go about making those changes, Chad.
Yeah, and I think, it makes us think about two different families. You have a family out there that, knew they were taking on too much risk prior to this, didn't really do anything, kind of maybe procrastination fell in. And all of a sudden now, that family has probably got some pretty good panic going on because they've just seen that portfolio drop so much in the last 1 to 2 months. Or you have the second family who was proactive, built the game plan, built a balanced plan, and now they're weathering this storm not by panicking. They realize that, hey, they can ride this out because they have that proper safe risk ratio.
And in times like this, Chad, with the big swings that we have, of course, what we're seeing going on with our country right now in this pandemic, you can't help but let emotion get involved. And what you're just talking about is what we call behavioral economics, why we behave the way that we do or act the way that we do when it comes to our hard-earned dollars. And as you mentioned, you have a couple, or the option two is what you said, is they are proactive, they have a game plan. In other words, they're investing with logic, not emotion. And the problem is the first option you talk about, they let emotion get involved. And that's what you have to do is have a game plan, stick to the game plan, and know if you stick to that game plan, you're going to come out successfully on the other side. The problem is, Chad, there's a lot of people, a lot of you at home today have a lot of questions. Should I take our money? Should I sit in cash and wait till our country gets back on track? Or should I stay in the market and hope it comes back to where it was, back in February before we have this 30-40% downturn in the market? So those are a lot of things that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to answer a lot of questions that a lot of you are probably having at home today. So when we return on the Coach's Corner, we're going to discuss the major causes of a down market that many of you are facing right now. We'll be right back.
The number one concern of retirees today is outliving their hard-earned dollars. It is more important now than ever to educate and empower yourself to make better decisions with your money that it has taken you 30 to 40 years to accumulate. How do you do this? By using our financial GPS, our guided planning system. This is a 4-step process to help get you successfully to and through retirement. The first step in this process is to create clarity. Here we will help identify your goals as well as your concerns and identify what you want to accomplish in retirement. The second step, we will analyze the risk you're taking with your current portfolio, and this step will also identify exactly what you are paying in fees. In the third step, we will evaluate and assess your current plan and help identify the gap between the missing pieces. And in the fourth and final step, this is where we will work together to implement a plan of action to accomplish your retirement goals. And this process can take place at any one of our convenient locations in Missouri, at our Creve Coeur and Sunset Hills offices, or in Illinois at our Edwardsville, Springfield, and Jacksonville locations. So call now to get set up on the right path on your journey through retirement.
We are back here with my colleague Chad Tobin, and today on the Coach's Corner, we're going to discuss the major causes of a down market that many of you are facing right now. We're dealing with a very volatile market due to the pandemic that we're in, of course, with COVID-19 or the coronavirus. Many people are panicking, although this is an extremely rough time for not only the way we are currently living, it is also a tough time for you who are retired or those of you who want to retire in the next 3 to 5 years. A large portion of your money, unfortunately, is sitting in the stock market where we're seeing those 20, 30, and even those 40% declines, Chad.
Yeah, and I think, this is really uncharted waters. I don't think anyone has ever been through a time like this where the virus is spreading so rapidly throughout not only our country, but really the world. And, we're starting to see that this is causing a lot of uncertainty. But at the end of the day, we're seeing local businesses and small businesses and large businesses really almost have to just completely shut down right now due to this virus.
Yeah, it's a huge problem, especially for small businesses and big businesses alike. So what I want to do now is we want to go ahead and jump in and discuss some of the causes of a down market. And number one, changes in interest rates. As interest rates move up, the cost of borrowing becomes more expensive. This means demand for lower yield bonds will drop, causing their price to drop. Decrease in interest rates will prompt investors to move money from the bond market to the equity market, which is very, very unsteady right now.
People having money in CDs when it comes to our hard-earned dollars and safe money, if they're not getting a whole lot on their safe money in the bank, where are they naturally going to go? They're going to try and take on more risk and put it into some more equities, which now, in a volatile time in the market, is probably a very nerve-wracking thing to do.
And of course, global events. We talk in our workshops all the time about our economy. 20 years ago, 80% of American workers had a pension. 20 years ago, we had a national economy. Today, what we have, though, is a global economy. And these are global events that threaten the economic stability of our country, of other countries, and unfortunately of our hard-earned dollars, of our 401ks and our other retirement and savings accounts.
And we've been through maybe some other viruses, but boy, I tell you, this one just had, this is the one that's really made the impact, and I don't think we've ever reacted to a virus in any way like we are now. But another example is Brexit. When the United Kingdom voters voted to leave the European Union back in 2016, this was a big deal in our business, looking at how this was going to react, and that sent the global markets in kind of a tailspin as well. So, we've been through some times like this with global kind of volatility, and we're in it again.
And the other thing, of course, that we see each and every day is, of course, dramatic news headlines that shape investor emotion. When I was a kid growing up, you had the major news stations. You thought everything they told you was the truth, right? Now, when you turn on these stations like CNN, NBC, you're not sure what to believe. And unfortunately, they try to sell fear. And some of it, again, we should be scared. This is a bad time right now in our markets and in our country. But what do we believe? What do we not believe? So those are the things also, again, we talked about emotion affecting our monies. We see this a lot of time with big headlines. We pull up our phone, we turn on the TV, we see big headlines that unfortunately scare a lot of us, and we put money in or we take money out. And again, we cannot let emotion run our portfolio or give us financial advice, if you will.
Yeah, and I think, it is. The TV, we're watching a TV show right now. Again, this is something that no matter, if you talk to 10 people in a day, you're probably going to have 10 different opinions because of how they take and perceive the different medias that are out there. I was talking with a client earlier this week, and, in a rural part of Illinois, central Illinois, where we're from, you have some farms and people have land and they're able to just get away. And he said, Chad, the best thing I've been able to do is not watch TV over the last week or so and be able to get outside and do some work. And, whether that's right or wrong, it's probably pretty true. And so I think what we're seeing is pre-retirees and retirees, reacting now more out of fear. But if you have a plan in place, you're able to kind of not react out of fear. You're able to just let your emotions kind of dictate how you're going to act if your plan is set up properly.
For sure. You want to be aware, of what's going on around you with your communities, with your country, with the stock market, but you do not want to let fear run your life, and that's some things we're going to talk about a little bit later. We're seeing a lot of people that we talk to now on a daily basis. They're letting fear, drive their portfolio, and that cannot happen. So a lot of you have questions. That's what we're going to talk about when we come back here on the Chalk Talk segment. But before we get to that, to download our free white paper today about what to do in a down market, visit www.schlegelfinancial.com/empoweryou. Coming up on our Chalk Talk segment, we're going to discuss some general guidelines that will help you be successful in a down market. We'll be right back.
He's such an involved dad. He's always telling the kids stories. I remember when so-and-so said I couldn't do this or I didn't make this team. That's what drives him. In our family, we always tell our kids to stick up for each other, stand behind one another. He feels it's his role to provide, keep us safe, and to make sure that the kids are taken care of. A lot of Chad's clients have the same traditional values, and he bonds with them. Each family has a different set of circumstances, and each family is unique and different. The common thread between all of Chad's clients is that they want the best for their family, just as he would our own family.
So we just discussed some major causes of a down market that many of you are facing right now. Now we want to show you some general guidelines that will help you be successful in a down market. Many of you out there right now have anxiety, not just because of the pandemic that we're in right now, that we're facing, but also because of the volatile market that we are currently in. And that is normal, especially if you have all or the majority of your money sitting in the stock market. But there are some ways you can take advantage of these times, which we want to talk about now. And the big question that a lot of you have is, should I stay and wait for the market to come back? Or should I sell all of my stocks and mutual funds and sit in cash until our country gets back to normal? Now is the time to hit the reset button and get on the right track. But a lot of you do not know where to start. Not sure who to turn to, or think it's too hard and too much paperwork to make a change. However, sometimes you have to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation, Chad, to get to a better place.
Yeah, and I think, probably the best way that I've ever learned, and most of us have ever learned, is the hard way, right? We learn from our mistakes, and we get better from our mistakes. And I think for a lot of people out there going through this, we just exited a time in the market that was one of the best 10-year periods that probably we've ever had. And so naturally, our human behaviors, we get a little greedy, and that was okay. But we all kind of knew, we didn't know what was going to cause it or what was going to happen, but we knew the markets, as high as they were, at some point, it wasn't a matter of if, it was when we were going to have kind of a pullback. And with this virus, we're seeing a major pullback, and we're starting to see this recessionary environment kind of come to play. So we've just got to understand, now's the time. We learn from a mistake. If you realize you were taking on way too much risk, this is the time to kind of look into it.
And you have to be smart, and you have to build a game plan. You cannot let emotion get involved. And that's why, Chad, we see times or days when the market's up 1,600 points. So everybody thinks, oh, well, now's the time to jump in. And then all of a sudden something comes out and the market drops another 2,000 points. Well, now the time is to drop out. And the problem is you're reacting with your money. You're not being proactive. And that's what we want to talk about today, and hopefully answer some of the questions or thoughts that a lot of you are having. And you just mentioned, Chad, recession. What a recession is, which we're going into, is a significant decline in economic activity spread across the economy lasting more than a few months. How do you come out on the other side and be successful, especially if you're retired or getting ready to retire in the next 3 to 5 years? So let's talk about some things that you have going on right now, a lot of questions you have. And one of those is, what can you control? There's so many things out there that you cannot control. We cannot control what happens in other countries, that even though you may not have money invested in companies like Europe, China, or Greece, as Chad talked about the Brexit, that affects your hard-earned dollars, that makes your 401ks go down. We cannot control the natural disasters, the tsunamis, the earthquakes, or the virus that we see right now with this COVID-19 going around. But what can you control? You can control how your money's invested, what your money's invested in, and who you work with when it comes to investing your hard-earned dollars, Chad, as you get closer to retirement.
Yeah, and I think taking that into a little bit more depth when it comes to your money, taking control. One thing, a lot of people didn't ever realize that, hey, I'm still working. I'm 59 and a half, 60 years old. All my money's in my 401k. Well, guess what? Now you can take control of some of that money, and you can actually control how much risk you're taking, what kind of income that's going to pay you in the future. You just basically take control of the money. So very similar to that situation that a lot of retirees didn't know they could if they were working. Now, out there is a time for you to really look at, go through a process and understand how much risk are you comfortable with, what kind of income is the portfolio going to pay, and take some control back over your money.
Absolutely. Number two, what changes should you make? A lot of people that we meet with are sitting, they may have 60, 70, or 80% of their money is sitting in mutual funds. Should they hang in there and wait for it to come back, or should they go all to cash and wait for everything to settle down and then get back in? And the thing is, Chad, there's really no right or wrong answer. It really depends on that plan that you have set up.
Yeah, and I think, this is an opportunity. A lot of times, many people out there were sitting on these old mutual funds you've held for years. You had a lot of gains. You didn't want to sell because, you didn't want to trigger that tax event. But now, all of a sudden, to reevaluate some of these older holdings you have and now say, hey, you're able to get Boeings of the world on a really good discount, or maybe just upgrade the quality and the value of some of these investments is a thing worth looking into.
And the problem we see, Chad, mutual funds, in my opinion, are set up for people 20, 30s, and 40s. They're throwing $100, $500 a month in, and they're dollar cost averaging, and they don't have that higher net worth. In other words, they have a little amount of money. They're trying to get in there, trying to build that wealth. But once you have that wealth, you have to change the way that you think when it comes to your hard-earned dollars. Because in the mutual funds, of course, you have to look, there's a lot of overlap. If you look at a lot of your mutual funds and you peel the curtains back and you look at the stocks that are held in each one of those, let's say, growth mutual funds or large cap mutual funds, they all hold a lot of the exact same stocks. So even though you think, hey, I got 5 or 6 different mutual funds, I'm diversified, well, really you're not, because you're holding a lot of the same stocks in that portfolio, in those 4 or 5 or 6 funds that you may have.
Yeah, and I talking about the mutual funds, another thing to kind of watch out for, maybe you're in loaded mutual funds. Maybe you're making those IRA or Roth IRA contributions now around the tax time, and they're still taking, now that this market's down and they've been beaten up, and now they're going to take another load right off the top. These are things that we're just talking about now, opportunities to kind of help increase value, reevaluate what types of vehicles you're using.
And probably one of the biggest ones now, Chad, is what should you expect from your advisor in a time of crisis? And this is probably one of the biggest ones. The most important thing we could do at that time when this market started to drop was get on the phone and talk to every one of our clients. Over 1,500 clients that we have talked to over the past 2 weeks, and just let them know what's going on, how you were set up, what kind of concerns do you have. And I think that's the biggest thing is, what is your advisor telling you right now?
Yeah, and I think, these are the times. I think if it was easy, everybody would do it. But this is the time that advisors went into this business. And number one, what we always talk about is if we've done our job properly, we've went through a process with our clients to understand the risk tolerance, to understand the income needs, to help upgrade those investments to higher quality, good income type dividends paying companies. But this is the time that you got to evaluate that communication that you've been getting.
And what we're seeing now, Chad, of course, we can't meet people face to face, but we're meeting people virtually. And we're talking to so many people right now that have seen us on TV, have watched one of our webinars, or have been to our workshop, and now they're calling us, they're concerned because the market's down. And we ask them, what are your advisors telling you? And the advisors tell them to hang in there. And then we get their portfolios out, we look at it, they have 80 to 90% of their money is invested in the market, and their advisor is telling them to hang in there. What, Chad, I guess I'm asking you, what is that different than if a client calls us and we tell them to hang in there? Kind of explain the difference between the two.
Yeah, and I think we're going to put it on paper, but in the strategy play. But I think if you are in a good, balanced portfolio, where if you're 60 years of age and you know how much risk you're comfortable taking, if we went through another 08 or a time like this, how much of that portfolio you would lose. If you've already been through that, right now you're in a balanced plan where some of that money's in that secure bucket. Hey, zero's our best friend right now. Some of that money in the growth bucket, paying good dividends, reinvesting at a lower point. Hanging in there makes a lot of sense right now. We don't want to sell those losses, and we're able to ride this back up. So I think the difference is do you have a balanced plan, or are you rolling the dice with everything?
Well, I think you mentioned balance plan, but I think we take that a step further. Does a balance plan mean I have bonds and stocks? Or does a balance plan mean you have more secure investments where even if the market goes down or interest rates drop, you know you can't lose that money?
Yeah, I think that's the second way. Number one, that secure bucket, the first thing we want to solve for is to make sure you have income coming in every single month that's going to last throughout the rest of your life, whether the markets go down, whether interest rates go down or up. And I think moving in, looking at a bond stock portfolio, as we ride this out and interest rates start going up, those bonds are probably going to be going down. So we've got to think outside the box. That balanced plan, to answer your question, is thinking outside the box, using some secure strategies, as well as keeping some of that money in the market.
So I think the whole key is when you talk to your advisors, hopefully they've called you. If they've not, you should be calling us. But if you're talking to your advisors and they tell you things like hang in there, or let's go to cash, whatever they're telling you, you just want to be educated and know why they're telling you this, know what questions to ask to make sure you are still on that path to get you successfully to and through retirement. I think that's the whole key. And to take that a step further, to download our free white paper today about what to do in a down market, visit www.slaglefinancial.com/empoweryou. When we come back on our strategy play, we're going to discuss what the term hang in there truly means to you and your money that you've spent a lifetime to build. We'll be right back. On this week's strategy play, we're going to discuss what the term hang in there truly means to you and your money that you've spent a lifetime to build, a lifetime to create. And it's a scenario, Chad, that we see a lot day in and day out on our virtual meetings that we're doing now. We ask people all the time, well, what kind of steps are you taking now with the market having that 20 to 30% correction? What kind of advice is your current advisor giving you? And one we hear all the time is hang in there. And hang in there may be good advice if your portfolio, if your plan is set up properly. But unfortunately, Chad, we see a lot of times that it is not. Actually had happened this week. Had some clients that I was talking to on a video chat. Been with the same advisor for 10 or 15 years. The advisor, though, the couple that just retired a year ago, the advisor has them set up in the same mutual funds for the past 10 to 15 years, even though they've been retired over a year. And his advice to them, when the market's down, we're having a correction, just hang in there, it will come back. The problem is, Chad, they're in a completely different economic status than they were 10 years ago because they were working, they could afford the risk, and they have time for that money to come back. But now they're retired. Now they're going to have to start drawing income in 6 months off of this money. And now the advice of hang in there really doesn't make a lot of sense today.
Yeah, I mean, especially with people out there that, this, whether it's 10 million, whether it's 100,000, if you're living off of that money, this is so important. And these clients here are now having to start to live off this money. And now to go through and have that kind of portfolio set up to just ride this out and hope it comes back is probably not the best hang in there advice.
Yeah. So we take a look here at example one, example two. Somebody has $1 million. We got Bob and Mary here that maybe are retired or getting ready to retire in the next few years. And the problem is, Chad, the majority of their money, 90% of their money is in the growth bucket where it's at risk, where they've lost a lot of money here over the past few weeks.
Yeah, and I think we talked earlier in the show, is now a time to, sell and do things or panic? And the answer is no. But it's also now a time to reevaluate, number one, are they comfortable going through another market downturn or this same downturn to lose more? What kind of income is that portfolio generating with their growth? What kind of quality of investments do they have? What kind of risk are they taking? So now it's a great time to reevaluate, your current plan that you have right now.
A great time to reevaluate, hit that reset button that we talked about before, and really just start asking some questions. Where am I at? Where do I want to go? Am I set up properly? Should I be making some changes? And then the other scenario, Chad, would be example two. And this is a scenario here, when you get closer to retirement or when you retire, you need to take your money and you need to set it up into 3 different buckets. The secure bucket, the growth bucket, and that extra bucket or that legacy bucket, if you will. And what we see with a lot of our clients, this is how they're set up, Chad. But again, it depends on a lot of different variables. It depends on your risk tolerance, your income needs, your lifestyle goals, your family dynamics. So there's a lot of variables that go into this. But overall, with $1 million, being a year or two from retirement, this is how you want that to look.
Yeah, and I think, I think about myself, and I plan on working quite a few more years, but if I was 60 years old, Bob or Mary, and I'm sitting here, and I know what just happened here with my $900,000, boy, it's not a good feeling at all. But if I'm Bob and Mary and I was proactive and I built that game plan, and now I'm in a balanced plan and I know, how I'm doing right now, I can afford to ride this market back up.
Absolutely. So if you're in the scenario where a lot of people that we talk to day in and day out they're not sure what to do. They're not sure where to turn. They think the paperwork's too much. I don't know how to do this. They're sitting here. What you want to do now is hit that reset button and get it set up where you have maybe 50, 60, or 70% of your money in the secure bucket. You still have some money in the growth bucket. It's there to grow. It's there for the long term. It's there to keep up the rate of inflation. You still need money in that growth bucket. So when this market turns around, you get that growth. But also you want to look at that legacy bucket. So this is the way when your advisor tells you to hang in there, you got to be smart and ask some questions and know exactly what hang in there means. Do you have all or a majority of your money sitting in the stock market at risk? Do you need help figuring out which step you should take from here? If so, we encourage you to give us a call today, and that's this week's Strategy Play. And again, folks, if you have questions about today's show, or if you would like for us to discuss a new topic, email us at askchad@schlegelfinancial.com to have your questions answered on the show. We'll be right back with some of the key takeaways from today. So let's jump in and talk about some of the key takeaways from today. And number one, understand the market does two things. The market goes up and the market goes down.
A lot of people, they realize they want to realize that the market only does one thing, it always goes up.
And a lot of people felt, Chad, that the past 10 years the market's only going to one way. The problem is with this pandemic and the crisis that we see now, there are corrections and you have to prepare for that. Number two, understand what you can and cannot control when it comes to your hard-earned dollars and the markets. And number three, follow the guidelines that will help you be successful in a down market. Educate yourself on where you're at right now and where you should be, and understand it may be time to hit that reset button.
And I think it's like running a business. You've got to know your numbers. So this is your business. You got to know how much risk you're comfortable taking, and you got to know the amount of risk you currently are taking.
That's right, Chad. And your portfolio, your financial house is your business. To download our free white paper today about what to do in a down market, visit www.schlegelfinancial.com/empoweryou. Schlegel Financial and our team of advisors, we have educational events coming up in your area to make sure you are prepared for today's retirement in the form of webinars. For more information and to sign up for one of these webinars, call 888-294-9248 or visit chadschlegelshow.com. Remember, folks, success is waking up in the morning, whoever you are, wherever you are, no matter how old or young you are, and bounding out of bed because there's something out there that you love to do, that you believe in, that you're good at, and you can hardly wait to get at it again today. At Schlegel Financial, realize that this is bigger than our team. It's about educating you, the public, and our wonderful clients, and empowering you to make better decisions with your hard-earned dollars. For my colleague, Chad Tobin, this is the coach, Chad Schlegel. Thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to visiting with each and every one of you next week.